AdvTech's revenue increased by 7% to 791 million rand, while operating profit grew by 10% to 110 million rand, with a strong improvement in education partially offset by the decline in resourcing. Joining us now in studio to unpack the numbers, Frank Thompson, CEO at AdvTech. Thanks so much, Frank, for joining us this afternoon. Well, you were listening to the commentary that came through from Eleni. A big thing for you to consider, one would assume, is that competition coming through from Curro, possibly not as strong as it could be down the line, but potentially something that you've got to be keeping your eye on.
Well, certainly, of course, we watch with great interest the advent of Curro, but I think it's important to highlight that Curro's main area of market is different to ours. They've not concentrated on the main urban centres, and where we are in the high end of the traditional private education schooling market is not something that they're addressing at the moment. We will continue to watch them, and I must say I think it's a good thing for the listed education sector as a whole to have another significant and responsible player. We probably welcome that.
Absolutely, and competition, the name of the game, no matter what sector you're looking at. Of course, we've spoken about this time and time again with you. I mean, that the appeal of a player like AdvTech is that South Africans are increasingly moving to private schooling and that space as the public sector disappoints. Still, it boils down to affordability. So with the current economic growth scenario, to what extent has that come to bear on your operations?
Well, it's obviously an important issue and a constant part of what we're working to be able to provide new opportunities. People also have to be able to afford them, and this keeps a lid and forces us to keep concentrating on cost management and control, but at the same time without sacrificing the value and quality of what we do. The success of how we've done it, well, these numbers tell a story. If you look at the education sector in particular, 87% of our business, we've been able to grow revenue by 9%, and operating contribution by 14%. This means that we've been able to increase the student numbers, which we're very pleased about, particularly in the core long-term full-time enrollments in brands such as Crawford, Trinity, Varsity College, Vega, Rosebank College, and so on. We've also been able to get the necessary price increases which have enabled us to continue to hire the best educators.
Let's take a look at that, because your pricing power does come under scrutiny in this kind of markets. But having said that, we do know that private schooling is not as much anymore viewed as discretionary spend. It is becoming a priority, and that would lend some support.
I think investment in education has always been a priority, and increasingly people are able to exercise, if you like, their aspiration to get the best possible education they can through, perhaps in this instance, the private education system. So the result is, although our parents perhaps aren't happy about the fee increases we have to ask them to pay us, they accept the necessity of that in order to enable us to continue to provide the best possible people to teach their children.
How much have you been able to push through?
In this year, we've probably averaged 8 to 10%.
Okay, so still considerable enough, pricing power that you're holding. Of course, one of the constraints to the business in the past has been that non-rollover of government contract to supply adult basic education and training. How much of a challenge is that? Are we seeing progress on that front as well?
No, it remains a challenge. There hasn't been much progress, and in fact, very largely, it's out of our base now. We saw the downturn resulting from the non-renewal of that last year, and no real exciting upside in that space at the moment.
So you've taken your focus off that for now, at least?
Well, I think it's been necessary to do so, and we've concentrated on what we think of as the major core of the business, the brands I mentioned earlier.
Okay, let's take a look at what is non-core at this stage, and that the resource division, because it's come under pressure, and no surprises, we've seen what the jobs market is looking like. What's your strategy in that regard moving forward?
Well, first of all, we can't hide from the fact that the results are a little disappointing. A 20% downturn is never a good thing. But I think it's important to highlight that notwithstanding that, this is still an excellent business with about a 14% operating margin, strong cash generation, and a very strong return on funds employed. So it's not a catastrophe by any means. And we really like, if you look back over the last couple of years, resourcing has provided a very good supplement to the group's performance in years perhaps when education hasn't been quite as strong as it is in this period. So there is a bit of a conglomerate effect in balancing the company's performance. That said, as I mentioned, we're not hiding from the fact that these results are a little disappointing. We're working hard to turn that round and rectify the position. I think we're making good progress.
Let's take a look at that CapEx spend. Investment planning with a 22% rise in capital expenditure moving forward. We've got that new capacity, yes, coming online, but it means at an extra cost. So do you see this being matched by revenue moving forward, or is that going to be a challenge? What's your outlook?
We're very confident about the projects that we've launched. The headliner within that 22% increase is the new Trinity House School at Little Falls. We've had a great response both from our existing waiting list as well as from people in the area who would like to come to the Trinity School when it opens. So we are very positive about what's going to be happening there. But that's not the only area, and where we're expanding, we're doing it because demand and the requests for places has given us confidence to do so.